Welcome to Real Talk with Reginald D. I'm your host, Reginald D. Today, we're joined by producer Nicole Gregory and co-writer Kirk Marshall, the creative minds behind the upcoming film, VILL. Set against the backdrop of Chicago's historic housing communities in the 1980s. VILL is a powerful story about brotherhood, mentorship, survival, basketball, and the resilience of young people trying to find hope in difficult situations. Welcome to the show, Nicole and Kirk.
How are you?
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Nicole, good seeing you again.
Absolutely. Same here.
So can you give us the story behind VILL, and was there a moment of experience that inspired you to create VILL?
Well, as a writer, I'll say it was a conversation, but the story itself, as you know, like NGS Entertainment, we focus on those stories of Black men. And so this was one of those stories that I felt like needed to be heard. But as far as the context of VILL, I will leave that up to Mr. Marshall because he is the reason the context even exists.
So, Kirk, as a Chicago native, what made you want to be involved in telling this story?
Well, as she said, it started with a conversation. And the conversation was pretty much about coming up in Chicago and my childhood and stuff like that. And pretty much the VILL is short for the Village, which is an area in Chicago that has different sectors, pretty much under the umbrella of ABLA Homes. 15, 7 stories, dog houses, row houses, Washburn, Medill, which is the greatest school in the world, which everybody went to. And it was pretty much sparked with what Chicago is known for. And as we were talking, there's a lot of stuff and a lot of things that happen in Chicago, mainly in the 80s, that's not common knowledge. And this project is pretty much shedding the light on more of the positive things and events and people surrounding the VILL or the Village in Chicago that's not common knowledge.
Yes, and I think that is much needed because everybody doesn't know the truth. You hear about Chicago,
Exactly.
Turn on the TV, something about Chicago, like, oh man, what's wrong with the Harrison district? What's wrong with this and what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
It's always violent. It's never really factual. Every city has its components of violence, but I feel like Chicago gets overshadowed with all the good things because of all the violent things. So our goal is to shift that narrative and give a history lesson on what community looks like outside of the violence.
Yes, because I had a friend of mine, he moved to Chicago for a period of time with a job. And he was like, man, he said, Chicago's cool. He said, man, what we hear on TV back in North Carolina, he said, that ain't, man. He said, no, Chicago is a great place.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Chicago really doesn't get the press for all the good things about Chicago, unfortunately. So as we're doing this project, as we said, it's pretty much to shed light on a lot of positive things that's not common knowledge about Chicago during the 80s.
Yes. So the film takes place in the west side of Chicago during, I think, 1985, somewhere around there.
Yes.
Why was it important to tell the story through that specific time and place?
Because the 80s was centered around my childhood and my upbringing. And there were a lot of pivotal things that happened during the 80s that was not only pivotal in my childhood and my upbringing and who I am today, but a lot of others down there. And I think it's the perfect time, which is the 80s, which to shed light on that timepiece down there.
Yeah. So without giving away too much, what do you hope audience feel when they leave the theater after watching VILL?
We want everybody to leave there going, wow, we didn't know that happened, or we didn't know about these people, or we didn't know about him, or we didn't know about her, or we didn't know about these programs, without giving too much away. And we actually started it out as a small film, but once we started posting the promo, the outpour of the community was so big that we had to expand it and pretty much make it a us project, pretty much involving the whole community and the whole sectors down there. Yeah. So, I was getting a lot of questions. Is it a movie? Is it a documentary? And I think the biggest misconception was from the Shy and Chirac or whatever. A lot of people thought that it was going to be mimicking that, but it's actual factual events. Once again, without giving too much away. You
Right.
know, it's about actual events that actually happened during that time. And we almost felt it would be a disservice to keep it as a short film. So we decided to not only expand it, but to involve more people into the actual film via interviews, and to not only stop it at a short film, but to actually make it more episodic moving forward.
Yeah, the community, and we talked about this the last time you and I spoke, is you can start off with a project and have a specific type of intention. And then because the project is community-based and community-driven, the community started making themselves a part of it, which was great. Like, it's great. So now it's like, I always say to him, I'm like, it's your story, but now the movie has become a movement. It's literally a movement. It has taken on a life of its own. And that lets me know as a writer and director that the work that we put together, it's intentional and it's natural and it's authentic. And so the audience already gets a sense of that, which makes it easier for them to relate to. So, and the people, and without giving away too much, Reginald, the people that we're talking about, that we wrote about, some of those people are still living and are aware that we're doing this project. So it's going to include some live interviews of people that actually lived in that part of the ABLA Homes to give a real authentic view of what it was really like. And so those episodes are creatively important to the community. So we kind of changed it up because it's taken on a life of its own.
Yes. And the thing about it, you know, when it's real and when it's from the heart, that's when you get movement. That's when the movement starts. You know, people make films and you be like, oh man, that ain't this and that other. But when it's really from the heart. Because what I'm hearing is that you have real people, real experience, and real neighborhoods that's in the story.
Yes, yes, yes. And, you know, just from social media, we begin comments, people, am I in it? Who's going to play me? And stuff like that. So, you know, we have to put everyone in it to some extent. And it's like, we want for people to see this film and say, hey, that was me, or, you know, that was a conversation we had, or that's my school right there, or I went through that. So it's going to be real as far as the people that grew up in that area, and as far as the movements and stuff that happened, that's not common knowledge. So I think not only are people going to enjoy watching how they grew up on the screen, I think that a lot of people are going to walk away more knowledgeable about not only the ABLA Homes and that whole sector down there, but Chicago in general.
Yeah. Man, I can't wait to see this one. I think this is going to be great.
Yeah, it is.
So one of the central themes is brotherhood. Why do you think young people today need stories about brotherhood, unity, and positive mentorship more than ever?
I can speak a little bit to brotherhood because that is why NGS exists. It's based on a camaraderie of men that help cultivate and drive the woman that I am today. There was a single father, several single fathers that had a hand in raising me. So that type of brotherhood, that type of family is what created me and what gave me the knowledge base to create NGS Entertainment. So that's what it is for me. And a lot of young people, a lot of young men don't have that. They don't even have the mentors. You know, back in the day, you had mentors. You had men in the neighborhood that took care of each other's kids. They looked out for one another. Now, all the kids are on their own, so they're learning from each other. They don't have the men in the community to guide them. So for me, it's imperative to separate the two, where Black men can also produce great women. And I think that's what's missing in the community. So that's what I think the VILL does. It creates a backdrop of brotherhood through different ways, because brotherhood can be interpreted different ways. But that's what it was for me. So for Kirk, it may be different.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when I think of brotherhood, I think it's just everybody sticking together for one common cause. It's just like you say, back in the day, you had I call them the OGs in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. You know, you be outside playing, you're doing something you don't supposed to be doing. They're like, hey, man, you know, and everybody's singing the same song, like, don't do this, don't do that, or whatever the case may be. Just like when I grew up, you know, I used to, like, especially when I started driving, before I lost my hair, right, I used to go to the barbershop. So at 16 years old, I'd go to the barbershop in the mornings. And, you know, my mom didn't have to take me because I grew up in a single-parent home. But I got my license, I take the car, I go to the barbershop. And I was sitting in this barbershop. And she would, back in the day when you had the pages and the beeper and stuff like that, she's paging my pages. I pick up the phone at the barbershop. She said, "Where are you at?" I said, "Mom's at the barbershop." She said, "You ain't got your haircut yet?" I said, "Yeah, I've been having a haircut." I'm just sitting there listening to, the older gentlemen and they're spitting knowledge and spitting stuff and saying stuff, man. I was just eating it up. And I think that was one of the best parts of my life growing up, just going to the barbershop.
Yeah, and I think it's very intricate. Young men having a blueprint or a template of somebody who they want to be like, So I think that's important as far as brotherhood also too. I have friends that I've been known since I was 7 years old, going to Medill. And that's another form of brotherhood too, a mutual respect and like-minded people moving together.
Yeah, because I think that's the biggest thing that created the manhood and the man who I became because of my grandfather mentored me. And I watched him run his business. I watched him, pastor his churches, or he built his own churches and stuff like that. And it was just, I just watched his day to day. And sometimes after school, that's where I was at, at my grandparents' house. And I learned from him, and it still carries me today at 54 years old.
Mm-hmm. And we can't forget that just because we get older, it doesn't mean we stop needing those mentors. I still have mentors in my life that make a difference in my decision making and which way to go. And it's great to have that community sounding board, for those important life shifts and changes.
Yes, absolutely. So what role does basketball play in the film beyond being a sport, especially knowing that Michael Jordan had the biggest impact on Chicago culture?
Mm-hmm. Well, basketball is just, as far as the film, basketball is, it actually serves as a middle vehicle, as a form of recreation. So it's not a basketball movie. Basketball is the recreation that the film is kind of centered around, along with other people.
Got it.
So without giving too much of it away.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the press release mentions a historic summer league that reduced neighborhood incidents. What can communities today learn from that example of unity?
Well, I think the way the film was written, it was written to highlight different aspects of community outreach, right? And like you said, it was one of those outreach. It could be, it could be hockey. It could have been anything. The goal is to find out what that community thrives with, what activities can that community get themselves involved in, and what activities gives them a positive outlook. Once you figure that out, you can use that model and place it anywhere. That's really the goal. The goal isn't to target necessarily the basketball aspect. It's to target what makes a community a community. What activities, whether it's entertainment, talent, acting, sports, whatever that is, how can we reach out and how can we make that activity a part of a community to bring people together? That's the goal. It wasn't really to focus on necessarily the activity. It was to figure out how can we unite a community across boards. What's the one thing that all the communities have in common? In this movie, it just so happened to be basketball, but it could have been hockey. It could have been anything. It could have been kneeling. It could have been whatever. The goal is to get the community to come together to see their commonalities, not their differences.
That's good. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Bringing everybody together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing everybody together. So I have two brilliant minds on here. And I know that when you're doing something, I've learned this through my whole endeavors of life and the things I do, is that when you are really authentic and doing things, there are challenges. What challenges have you faced in making sure this story remains authentic while also creating an entertaining film?
I'll let you go first.
Well, at the onset of the original story, we would have something set, and the more questions she asked me, the more stories of my childhood would come, and she would always criticize me for, okay, so now you're constantly changing the script again. Now you're changing it again. Now you're changing it again. I was like, well, I forgot about this part. Or I forgot we used to do this, or we did that, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's, if any, that's the only challenging part. Like, there was so much stuff happening that used to happen in my childhood that I want the world to know that, we just try to cram everything in, but it works out because we're not going to just stop at one feature film or whatever.
Okay.
We're going to expand it because it's like too much, and just the responses that we're getting from social media, we have to give the community and the whole ABLA, we have to give them what they want and what they deserve.
Mm-hmm. I think for me as a writer, director, the hardest part was casting. And because I know this is a real film, these are real people, I had to literally take his stories and write them so that the audience understood. Because like you said, when you're making a film, you could write the film for you, but the goal is to write the film for others to enjoy and understand and be able to take something away from it. So the challenge for me was trying to compile those stories. Number one, to make them make sense and make them make sense to people who had never lived that life before. I wasn't able to relate in a way that he was able to relate to those same stories. So for me, the rewrites meant history. I need to bring the audience into the history. That was the most challenging thing for me writing this movie, is to compile those stories, make them make sense, and have the audience take away what they needed, give the film the heart that it was supposed to have, and keeping true to the characters in it. Because literally I would have to write while he's talking, because he's talking 50 miles a minute and I'm trying to compute it and type at the same time, and have to go back the night after and go back and compile it and then present it back in words and character. That was a huge challenge. Yeah, but I got his final script permission, so I am done.
Well, pushing this thing to the next level, let me tell you, Kirk, I kind of felt next level when I first interviewed Nicole the first time. So you got something on your team, man. You got your hands full on this one. You got to go. Yeah, you got to come on with it, man. You got to come on with it. So let me ask you this, Kirk. What message would you give a young person growing up in difficult circumstances who feels like their future is already decided?
I would say finding a mentor, finding an example, whether it be a male, whether it be someone on TV or whatever, but you have to have an example of what you want to be. And I think that's where it starts at. A lot of people, a lot of the youth, they don't have an example of what they want to be. So I was fortunate to grow up in an environment and have examples. And I was able to follow those examples along with having mentors. My mom, who was a single mom, my dad passed when I was 2. She was conscious to surround me with positive role models, because it was only so much she can do as a mother, to whereas I was fortunate enough, to where she knew prime examples, for me to see, for me to pattern myself after. So to answer your question, I think it's important to have examples.
Yeah, exactly.
Of what you want to be, who you want to be.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head, man. You hit it right on the head. So let me ask y'all this. 5 years from now, what impact do you hope the VILL has had on culture, young people, and the film industry?
That it could be done. A lot of people are in circumstances and they don't think that it's possible. Once again, going back to that timepiece, we, meaning everyone in the ABLA Homes and in the ABLA sector, we were fortunate enough to have had people that believed that it could be done. And those were the templates, whether it be community leaders, whether it be coaches, whether it be teachers. We were fortunate enough to have people like that around us to show us it could be done. And once again, that's not common knowledge when you mention Chicago. So once again, that's another reason for this film, The VILL, is that there's a lot of people, great people that produce great people in the VILL, in Chicago, that's not even known. Yeah. And these people should be household names. So once again, that's another purpose for this film and for this movement.
Mine is a little bit twofold. Mine is bringing different light to my hometown, giving people the education on what the other side may look like. You don't have to relate to it to enjoy it and learn from it. And then, of course, the biggest thing for me is being a woman in filmmaking, because I'm accustomed to being on the other side of the camera. I can do the other side of the camera with my eyes closed. But actually writing something, I've been writing for more than 2 decades, but to have my writing actually be looked at, enjoyed, and critique as well is a challenge, but it just shows that women in film are very important because we're able to bring a light to certain things and we're able to walk things into a room that will ordinarily get ignored. And so for me, it's being from the south side of Chicago, him from the west side of Chicago. This is what happens when the right people get together at the right time for the right reason, doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think women in film is very powerful because women are so much more creative than we are. You can walk in my house and you can walk in my house and look at it and be like, man, he didn't do this. he didn't decorate this. He didn't do none of this. I just bought it. So yeah, absolutely. So before we end this, let me go back to you, Nicole. What other stuff you got going on that you want to talk about?
Oh man. I mean, everything I did in 2025 is now sprouting forward 2026. So I've got Double Doors coming out. Currently can be found on Atlanta Ugly on YouTube as Raquel, the money launderer. I've got an episode on ID, Oxygen, BET, for Snap. I've got Fatal Attraction. I've got a couple episodes of Fatal Attraction coming out along with For My Man that haven't come out yet. And I've just got booked for 2 new projects along with this film. Now 2026 is full. That stuff will come out in 2027. So, I'll keep you abreast on everything, but the VILL is priority, of course, because that's a film project that I'm producing and directing. And so that will come out. We're looking at a release date for at least before the first of the year, maybe in November. We can get it out quick enough, at least the first couple of episodes. So, yeah, I would say about, Reginald, maybe about 8 to 10 projects that haven't been released yet. 4 of them on major networks.
Wow. So when do you sleep?
I think between 9 and 11.
Yeah, man. Wow. But it's great, man. That's great. That's great stuff.
Yeah, and it's because of people like you. You've always been very supportive. You know what I mean? And being able to reach back out to, we had such a great interview that last time and we touched so many people. So the goal is to do that again. So why not you be the first one to get that info?
Yes, I appreciate that. And then if you need for me to support, you need for me, just reach out. I'm here.
I appreciate that.
So Kirk, anything lastly you want to say?
Yeah, lastly, we have a group of great Chicago actors that's really going to kill it on screen. We can't wait for you all to meet these people, whatever, but they're going to do really good. They're going to kill it on screen.
Absolutely.
And I'm not in it.
So how can listeners reach out to you, follow your journey, or watch the VILL when it comes out?
You got it.
Yep. So of course, we're going to, of course, have a premiere. Everything will be Chicago based. So our first release will be in a Chicago theater. Our actors are from Chicago. It will be filmed in Chicago. And once it's out, we'll have a premiere and we'll, of course, have that press release for media to show up. But to follow me in particular in all my projects, you can go to Nicole Gregory on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
So you can find me at Facebook, Kirk Marshall, IG at Constant Groove Entertainment, LLC.
There you have it. Nicole Gregory and Kirk Marshall. Man, I'll tell you what. Hey, y'all need to go ahead and be ready and check out the VILL when it comes out because I feel like this is going to be some real stuff, and I can't wait.
It is. Thank you.
Indeed.
Right. And anything you need from me, just let me know.
I will. You need
to come back on or whatever the case may be. Just let me know.
Okay, will do.
All right. Thanks for listening to Real Talk Reginald D. If you enjoy listening to Real Talk Reginald D, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. See you next time.